Okay, dude.
All right.
I'm all yours.
Wonderful. Seth Ellsworth, right?
Yes, sir.
That's how you say your name.
Yes,
Welcome
it
to the
is.
show. This is you. I don't even know if you know what this podcast is about, but that's okay because I'm doing something different anyway. I to give you some background real quick because literally, do you even know what my podcast is about? You
Does
probably
it does
don't.
it involve humans?
Yes, it does.
Then we're
It
good.
does. Perfect. So my podcast is called The Unconventional Attorney. So I'm a law firm owner, and I sort of coach and help other law firm owners with their business, but it
Mhm.
ends up being, it's always more than business. You know how that goes. And what I
Absolutely.
normally do for my podcast is a lot of just me talking to the camera, short little
Mhm.
5-6 minute kind of thoughts of the day based on just whatever's kind of happening in my world. But um, I'm just become more interested in having more conversations just in general about life and about business and about all kinds of stuff. And, we don't really know each other that well. And it's funny that you mentioned traffic and funnels because that's, I think, how I was kind of introduced to you. I
Mm.
think Taylor
Awesome.
either mentioned you or you were on a podcast of theirs or something. I don't know, but I'm 99% sure that's kind of how I got into your world, which is how it would have entered in. Um, but welcome. So really, I just I know a little bit about what you do, but I'm really just kind of interested to have a fun conversation about life, about things. Obviously, this is an interesting time because there's all of this. People are running out of excuses, right?
Mhm.
For things to do. A lot of the busyness, a lot of the expectations, a lot of everything is gone because of this, coronavirus. But it also makes people lost, right? Because it eliminates excuses and really sort of makes people think about what they really want. So,
Yep.
welcome. To why don't you start by sort of like introducing yourself a little bit? Tell me what you do. Tell me what's going on with you.
Awesome. Well, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, although that would probably be fun. I grew up actually because of my persuasion skills. People are like, "Man, you'd be such a good lawyer." But I'm like,
Nice.
bro,
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to go through the amount of school that it would require. Although I've wanted to. My degree is in American Studies because I wanted to leave the door open for law school.
Yeah.
So it's always been something that I'm curious in. I love how lawyers think. I love how they think critically. I love how they're taught to think, and that that's really shaped a lot of who I am. Is thinking critically about sacred cows, so to speak. That being said, I'm just a normal dude who wants to be the best dude that I can, and that's really shaped my life. I've done a lot in entrepreneurship, and I'm focusing now more on inviting people to come along for the ride, because I think that all of us at some point we want to grow, but yet it's like we have these two versions of ourselves. Like we want growth, we say we want growth, but then we've got this other me inside of us that's just like fighting against us. That makes it super, super difficult. So why are things so hard? Why is it that the good things in life are always the hardest to accomplish? And what can we do to make that feel more normal instead of like pulling teeth?
Right.
And so anyway, I'm fascinated by that question. And so for the last dozen years, I've been really hitting hard on why is it hard and how can we make it simple and easy?
Yeah. And
And
with the times that we're in, are you seeing are sort of the reasons that people are struggling? Are they changing? Like what does that make sense? Like
no,
where
it's the same because we deal with humanity. So this is I'm just going to talk about the things that are interesting to me, and you
yeah,
guys can judge for yourself.
for sure.
Um, I like things that are most useful. So I mean, we could talk about the airy fairy stuff all day long, which I also know, but it's never been useful.
Yeah.
So I want the most useful things that get me the best results. So 80-20 principles, things that are like small little levers that move giant things in our lives. Because I'm bored with like, gotta have a morning routine, gotta work out, gotta eat well, gotta meditate. Not saying there's anything wrong with those, but you can't tell me that that's the path to success because for each of us, it could be entirely different.
Sure.
Like this, there's 4 giant books on my bookshelf right here full of all the stuff that they say you should do in order to be successful. Well, seeing how I suck at doing all those things, like what are my chances at success then? That doesn't make sense to me. Like we have all these requirements for success that because somebody said, or because a billionaire does it this way, or because this mentor says this, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So like
do you think that
I'm fascinated at why and what is
right.
simple, what's fast, what's easy.
For a lot of people, though, I think for a lot of people, though, isn't the reason that they try those, and because I've been one of those people for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that I approach these things has evolved over time. But do you think often it's people, they don't know where to start, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to get there, and so they just are looking for some examples of people that have been successful and they tried those things, like.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So then then where do you start? Like, how do you find those levers if they're so, if they're different for everybody? How do you find them? Like, where do you go?
This is where like there was no easy answer for me. Like and this is just my journey. Everybody's journey, I believe, is a little bit different. But one thing that we all have in common is that we're human. So we all deal with human nature. But you look at human nature in the context of personal development, and what is it? Like it's a curse. It's your enemy. It's your mortal enemy that keeps you stuck and small and all this stuff. And you have to fight against it. You got to hack it or flat out deny it. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. It hasn't. I've tried that. So
right.
What I've figured out for me and helping others figure out for themselves is not stuff that you hear in any book I've ever read. Like it goes against the grain because it's so simple and it deals with universal principles. Heaven forbid something applies to all of us. And it deals with something that is predictable, it's scientific. It's what I call superhuman nature. And so I literally stumbled upon this because I mentioned that I wanted to be the best version of myself I could be. I want to be a good dude. I want to be the best Seth that I can be. Right. Whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel that 100%.
I think we all feel that to some degree. Like we all want more.
Yep.
Right? But we also all struggle with human nature. I understand people blaming human nature. That's why you got to meditate, right? Because you got to meditate yourself out of your human nature state.
Right.
That's why you got to do your morning routine. That's why you got to do all this stuff so that you can get in state so that you can get anything done. But for me, back in the year 2000, so this is like a long time ago, I had this list of 37 things that I thought were requirements in order for me to be the best version of myself. The number one thing at the top of the list was journal writing. For me, that was like my linchpin trophy habit. Like I knew that all the things I wanted came on the back of that. So 8 years later, I'm still on thing number 1 on the list.
Nice.
So 2008, I'm like, at this time, my life sucked. Like I was broken every way. My body was broken. My heart was broken. My soul was broken. My dreams were broken. I was an athlete and my body fell apart. And so my dream Division I career that I was in, I literally was forced to quit. They didn't fire me. They didn't cut me. I was forced to quit because my body couldn't handle it. So that led me down this dark hole of depression, et cetera. And there was this one thing in my life that was like the crown jewel, but it was also proof that I sucked, that my life sucked. Because what do you write in your journal when you hate yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you write? What do you write?
Like you could vomit, right? Or like at the other time, at the other end of the spectrum, like I wanted to make a history for my kids, and people would look at me and be like, whatever.
Right.
And I didn't know what to write, and I couldn't get myself to write. But for whatever reason, I couldn't give up on that one thing. It was this internal battle. So on leap year day, ironically, and this is a leap year, the year that we're recording this.
Yep.
So this was a 12-year anniversary a couple months ago. Leap year day, I had this experience. Inexplicable, didn't make any sense to me. To me, it was a gift from God. I don't know what you guys believe, but it was like this one-time thing where something reached into my life and rearranged everything, and all of a sudden I was writing in my journal as if I was born doing it. 967 days in a row. My previous best was 5 over 8 years, because I'm fighting myself, right?
Yep.
It's my human nature versus my, it's the higher self versus the lower self. And I would win for 5 days in a row, but human nature would always destroy me. I always lost at some point to human nature. And then I had this event and it just freaking fixed everything. Started making money. I got married. My life turned around in a heartbeat. So seeing how that didn't make sense, I like filed that away and like, that must be some, that's like a higher power experience where I had no control over it. I couldn't duplicate it. But in 2012, I was sitting in a Brendan Burchard event. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a motivational speaker. I hate that term.
Yep.
But he's in the personal development space. He's awesome, dude.
He is.
And I'm sitting in the event and I'm just letting my mind wander. And then I get this big idea. It's like, remember that thing that happened to you? What was that? And that night I couldn't sleep. And I get emotional thinking about this because it's just like it was yesterday. I mean, it's 8 years ago, but it's just like it was yesterday where all this was like, what if I could duplicate that? So I went on a journey to figure out what happened. And at the end of the day, what happened was essentially this. My higher self and my lower self became one. At least they partnered with each other and they were on the same page for once. That's essentially what happened, to where there was no fighting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so writing in my journal, and I don't know what things it is for you, but we all got an idea of something that we wish we could just get ourselves to do, but for whatever reason, we can't.
Yeah.
Like we all have something that we wish we could just, and we find ourselves saying that, well, why can't I just get myself to whatever? And it's the simplest of things. It's like, why is it so hard to get out of bed at 6 a.m? Why is it so hard to write in my journal? Why is it so hard to go to the gym? Things that matter, right? And so I started to be curious about human nature, but nobody was talking about it. Human nature was like the curse of humanity. And personal development was like, is this making sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm just, you can totally interrupt me whenever you want.
No, I'm just listening, man. It's a good story. I like where it's going. So I'm intrigued,
Okay, cool. So I thought human nature was something to fight against, something to beat into submission, to overcome. Now I see it as a blessing, because hiding in plain sight is a giant superpower that nobody's talking about. And I finally arrived at this. This was like 4 years ago where I finally figured all this out. And I've been messing with these principles since then. And they're universal. They work for everyone and they never fail. Boy,
what are they?
That sounds intriguing.
That sounds intriguing.
And if you could create a personal development system that never failed, what is it that you couldn't do? Like if there was no internal battle to doing the things that you know you need to do, what are you going to fail at? The only reason you fail is either you quit or you get in your own way.
Sure.
And those are all human issues. So like I started to uncover the simplest idea and it just blew my mind to the simplicity. It's this. I'm gonna kind of walk back into this principle just so it's understandable. If you look at human nature closely, the reason why people are scared of it is because it always wins, meaning it's really, really powerful. It seems permanent, meaning it's just stuck in whatever way it is, but it also seems really complicated and we can't understand it.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick. When you talk about human nature, are you talking about like instincts? Are you talking about like our propensity to get in our own way? Like
all of it. So human nature has, if you look at the amygdala, which is where your human nature is programmed, and your human nature response, like right now we look around, there's fear everywhere, right? There's panic. there's
Yep.
chaos. Those are human nature responses.
Right. Like human nature is running after the toilet paper.
That's right.
Right.
There's nothing logical. It doesn't make any sense.
That's right. That's
There's
right.
nothing logical about that. But yet we find ourselves doing it. I bought toilet paper. Like everyone did, right? We also bought bidets for every toilet in our house.
That's right.
So like we now have 5.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's like, I still did it and I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware of this stuff. It's not my responsibility to stop that response because I can't.
Right.
That's how powerful human nature is. It has a response to any stimulus because it wants to keep you safe, et cetera, and sheltered and fed and reproducing and all these things that human nature wants, right? But I uncovered a core, what I call the master motive of human nature. And when I figured this out, game over, man. Like this is like the crown jewel of personal development for me. And every client I've ever worked with since, because it's never failed. It always works. Here's the thing. Your master motive, if you understand it, all you need to do is tweak the things that you want to fit the master motive, and you can do anything you want. And your human nature will actually turn into a superpower. That's what I call a superhuman nature. So here's the master motive. Your human nature will fight tooth and nail for what it feels is normal. All it wants is more normal. It doesn't matter what normal is.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what you want. It has nothing to do with what you want. Because we all want more and better and bigger and whatever and faster. It doesn't care. It wants whatever you currently have. It wants more of that. So if you're struggling, if you're suffering, if you're broke, if you're rich, if you're used to growth, if you're used to failure, if you're used to getting in your own way with blocks and limiting beliefs and all sorts of stuff, guess what your human nature is fighting for? It just wants more of that. So it wants more normal. That is the currency, the master motive of human nature. Everything that I've read in Robert Greene's giant book of the 48 Laws of Human Nature, cognitive bias, cognitive theory, cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias, observation bias, all the biases that we have of humans, guess what they all do? Every single one of them. There's one master motive. Your human nature wants more of the same.
Right.
That's it. And anything that comes against that is a threat. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything that threatens your normal, it doesn't want that.
So then what's the trick? Changing what normal is?
Bingo. Bingo. That's it. You change the definition of what normal is, and then guess what happens? Your higher self and your lower self, or your spirit and your flesh, your true self and your human nature, they partner each other. They partner with each other to accomplish the same thing. So what does this feel like? Well, typically it feels like if doesn't it make sense that if you were fighting your human nature, that like personal development says, you know, what you resist persists. So if you're fighting your human nature, what's the chances you're ever going to win that battle?
Small.
Like small to none, like almost zero.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to become tired. And so like, it's like swimming upstream. Like our family has a cabin in the Snake River in Idaho, on Henry's Fork of the Snake River. And as a little kid, I remember running out at the end of the pier, because it's a pretty swift, strong river. It's about 2-3 feet deep right there. And I remember jumping out there just to go for a swim, right? And I'm a pretty good swimmer. I'm tall, long. I got, you know, long torso, short legs, big feet. I'm like a Michael Phelps, kind of. Strong swimmer. I was when I was little. I jump into the water and I swim my face off. And I'm like going up against the current, right?
Right.
Until I'm exhausted. And then I finally back up and just stand up, because the water's, you just stand up, right? And not only did I had expended all of my strength, not only had I not gone anywhere, meaning I made no forward progress at all, and I'm swimming as hard as I can, I had gone backwards. So like I was downstream from where I had started, even though I was swimming my face off. I'm like, isn't that what this feels like when we are fighting against, denying, or trying to hack human nature? Like you get nowhere, and eventually you have to quit. So this concept became crystallized when I realized that when you partner with human nature, it works for you instead of against you. It's like floating downstream. Now, it's not all perfect because downstream, there's still obstacles that you have to come around. You still got to be careful around what, what's around the next river bend, right? You still have to direct and guide and make sure it's working, but it's effortless in terms of your momentum because you're working together. So for me, what happened with my journal writing, higher self meets lower self, journal writing, which thing historically I have proof of, I really sucked at it. Years of proof. And then all of a sudden, writing in my journal as if I was born doing it. No stress anymore. Almost no effort. I just did it. Totally normal.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, this is freaking bonkers. Nobody's talking about this. I've never heard of it. I could be wrong. There's got to be someone talking about this somewhere. I've just never heard it. I've spent at least $500,000 over the last 20 years on my own personal development, and I've never heard it taught once, not once. Wouldn't life be easier if it didn't feel like we were fighting ourselves all the time? That seems common sense to me.
Yeah, but yes. But isn't there this constant sort of put? So I think you're 100% right. I think identifying what this normal is for you, or what your specific human nature is, doesn't it sort of involve in some way releasing the expectations of sort of outside forces against what you're trying to do? Like, doesn't that at some point require you to say, like, this is actually what I want, or where I want to go, or like what I'm actually about?
That would be the commitment.
Yeah.
Where you strip away everything else and you've got to be full on committed. Because here's what also I realized. There's a slow way and a fast way to do this. The slow way is to meditate yourself there, is to morning routine yourself there, is to affirmation yourself there. And eventually you'll arrive at the conclusion. I mean, I don't think that stuff works to cause change. I just don't. Because it's never worked for me. It's never worked for a single client I've ever worked with. I think they're nice because they make you feel better, but they don't cause change. They just support change. So then I got curious because I experienced an event. Like, it was an event. It wasn't meditating or reaching the magical 21 days in a row to where I was like, all of a sudden had the habit that I wanted. It's freaking nonsense. So I started to dig and I found a study. And the study said that after the age of 25, really the only thing that changes a human is a traumatic event. And I'm like, huh. So if we can't change human nature by, or change what's normal by just thinking it, or change what's normal by manipulating it, or attacking it, or fighting it, or forcing it even, how do we change what's normal? Because that's the trick, right? In order to turn human nature into superhuman nature, we have to redefine what is normal. And as soon as we do that, everything becomes easy, simple, fast. So in order to do that, you have to create a positive transformational event. And that's where what you said, like, you have to be fully committed to it. So how do you create this event? I mean, this is what I do for my clients. It's, the breakthroughchallenge.com is where I help people create that event.
Yep.
And the event kind of just does this stuff for you, but the elements have to exist. And one of those is commitment. Commitment is the rarest form of currency in our world right now today. Full on commitment. Commitment comes from two places. These two places are the only two places that you can actually fully control. Number one is your identity. Number two is choices. Those are the only two things you actually own. Everything else is nonsense. So if you strip everything back, the only things that you actually have are who you think you are, how you see yourself, how you
Right.
associate to the world around you.
Oh, you're talking again real quick. Your microphone, you just hit something, I think. Nope. I just lost your sound. Can you still hear me? Oh, yeah. Try
We're
now.
good.
Yep.
Good. Okay,
I
cool.
think so. Yes.
This cord.
Must have just hit that thing just right, man. It's good now.
Yeah, that cable's kind of old. I need to replace it. But you can hear me okay now?
Yep. Yep.
We good?
Yep. It just turned off for a second, so you're good now. You're back.
Yeah, no worries. And so this is super useful for lawyers, for any human, really. When you look at, because law, like what is law? What is universal law? Like, is there a law that is universal? Is there a law above, common law or commercial code or laws of land or whatever? And I believe there are rules that define humanity. And the thing that's most unique about a human is that they have access to their identity. Your identity is created by choices. Like we make choices about who we are as young kids when we have no idea about the world.
Right.
So we live and we love and we hate and we have these experiences as kids, and then we choose who we are and how we associate with the world. And that forms the identity. So instead of allowing human nature to just define all of this for us, what if we could use our identity to choose something new? To me, that's all there is. Like that's the only way to do it. So this traumatic event must control or must possess two of these characteristics. It must change your identity, or at least I define that as how you choose to see yourself.
Right. You expose your true identity, or you sort of allow yourself to actually admit who you are outside
Correct.
of the sort of the context of all of these forces pushing on you. What it means to be a lawyer, a father, an American, or whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you make a committed choice to be that. So
Right.
you redefine who you are, you choose who you need to be in order to make this normal. And then you make a committed choice to be that person. That's all I do in the Breakthrough Challenge. And at the end of the day, that's all that's needed. So you look at how this fits into normal personal development. It fits perfect. Like affirmations. Well, affirmations are, I am strong. I am rich. I am
Right.
powerful. All this stuff, right? How do you affirm something that's not true? Like you can't. So what do you have to do? You have to make it true. How do you make it true? Traumatic, positive, transformational event where you choose who you are. And that changes your human nature to be working for you and against you, and your higher self meets your lower self. And you become that. So this is how simple this gets. For me, writing in a journal was not somebody I was. In fact, part of my traumatic event was this giant amount of awareness that showed up with a question that said, Seth, do you even believe you are the type of person that writes in a journal? Guess what my answer was in a split second? Hell no.
Right.
I can't write in a journal to save my life. And then there was this giant pause where like all this finally started to make sense. That's the problem. Right there. I don't see myself as somebody that writes in my journal. So what are the chances that I could actually force myself to be that person? 0. And I had 8 years to prove it. Like I don't have 4 lifetimes to be the kind of dude I want to be, right? Nobody has this time. So in order to speed it up and do it faster, what changed for me is I chose fully committed to be a journal writer. That's it. So what does somebody who naturally writes in their journal do? They write in their journal. It's just what they do. Totally freaking normal. So I changed the identity first, and then the action just happened. because it's normal. The
Yeah.
beautiful thing about what I call superhuman nature is once you change what's normal, guess what? All the stuff we say we hate about human nature then becomes the thing that keeps you writing in your journal. It works for you instead of against you.
Right. How do you deal with that outside influence? Like, let's say it's not journal writing. Let's say, for example, instead you're going to be like a healthy eater, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you go out to the restaurant with your spouse or your friend and you order a salad instead of a burger.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the hell's up, dude? Like, where's my burger, bro? You know? And like, you know, I think I agree with you 100% what you're saying. I think but there are these rocks in the river, right? You're starting to
Totally.
go with the flow. These are the rocks that come up, right?
100%.
How do you find this? Because I think as you go farther down the stream, you just see the rocks and you go around them. Like you become the water, right?
Yep.
But at the beginning, man, you just pound right into those suckers,
You do.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that is okay. Like this is not a thing of perfect.
Right.
By any stretch. And it doesn't make everything awesome. Like it's still bumpy. I mean, it's still a road that you got to chart your course, but you can go quicker and faster. So social pressure is a totally different thing. So like, I noticed you have a little bit of alcohol back there, right?
Yeah.
On the shelf. So
I do.
You probably drink.
I do sometimes.
A little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't. Like I've never had a drop of alcohol in my life.
Yeah.
So there's nothing you could do to get me to drink that.
Right.
I can't do it.
Right.
But I also don't think any less of you for that, even if you try, because lots of people have tried. It's just not something that I do, right?
Sure.
Because I don't drink. That's an identity issue for me. I don't drink sometimes. I don't drink a lot. I'm not a drinker.
Right.
It's an identity issue. So all of this comes from whatever conviction you have inside of yourself. Like, I don't care if people drink, like whatever. It's not a big deal.
But
for me, it has to start here. So for example, if you're a vegan, you think it's hard to turn down meat?
Well, no, but let's change the scenario. Let me ask you something like super concrete, because this is great stuff, but I want people to be able to use it in the real world, because they're going to be facing these pressures, right? So to use the alcohol example, let's say, for example, that I was an occasional alcohol drinker, right? And that's how I'm known, right? That was my normal before.
Yeah.
And instead of me, a podcast buddy being the one that's trying to get you to drink, what if it's like your wife, you know, like I understand the idea of committing to it and being able to say no, but it can sometimes be harder to manage those relationships in that context. Does that make sense? I mean,
totally.
I like
100%.
What is your approach to handling those relationships that are closer to you, that are
so
not buying what you're doing, you know?
Yep. I got you. Here's what I've noticed. And this is just my experience and those of clients, which is not everyone's experience.
Sure.
Once you make the committed choice for yourself, there is such a different, like I have never had a spouse push back on someone, not once, when they go through this process. The reason why is because they can tell something has changed. So the people that are closest to you, lots of times it's the hardest. Like, hey, honey, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you're both still in bed. Like that shit happens all the time, right? And that's kind of what most people are used to. New Year's resolution comes along, and hey, honey, I'm going to do this year. Doesn't happen. So they're used to seeing the version of ourselves that doesn't. It's the higher self versus the lower self, and they're watching it happen. So of course, when they come to you and they say, hey, honey, I don't drink anymore, they'd be like, yeah, right, bro.
Right.
I mean, come on. Like you said that before or whatever. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be drinking.
Right.
I mean, who cares?
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
But they've observed the version of yourself that's in conflict. But here's what's beautiful. when the higher self meets the lower self and you partner, they feel it. They can literally see it. So I have a client right now. She's an attorney, fittingly enough.
Yep.
And she's trained to find problems. She's trained to see deficit. She's trained to poke holes in things and be pessimistic. So naturally, she's stressed out. She's anxious all the time. She gets angry. She has like a hair trigger where like, boom. And then she's like, Betty kaboom, you know?
Yep.
It's like,
yep.
And it's been that way for years. And this eats at her because inside she's a nurturing, loving, kind person. That's her higher self. But she's been trained because of law and what she does to be somebody she hates. So her poor husband is watching this happen, and she's just like us. She's like, honey, I'm going to change this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop doing that. And it never happens. And it's been that way their entire marriage of 18 years.
Yep.
So 18 years of history that proves that she cannot overcome this. She hates her job. She hates what she does now because it makes her feel this way. And there's tension in their relationship, especially now with the coronavirus, where they're all at home. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Like
right.
Relationships get stressed. If they're not good, they get exposed. And we're like,
sure.
damn, got something to deal with here. I mean, that to me, that's a blessing and it's a benefit to all this stuff, is we get to deal with these issues finally. Because like dudes can't escape to the office anymore. Like you gotta hit it head on.
Right.
But she goes through this process, and I get emotional thinking about this because she's the only one that went through the process. But while she went through that process, her husband's changed. And I got a message from him just today that said, Seth, you have no idea what you have done for us. This has wildly changed our life. And he didn't even go through the program. Like he didn't even do the thing. Right. He didn't have that traumatic, transformational, positive event. She did. So he sees the change. It doesn't come out of her mouth. She just feels more calm and connected. That's how people describe her now. Even though they've known 18 years of her, that's been different. So I get what you're saying, but when you commit on a different level that you didn't even know was possible, it's hard to describe because it's not something that you can like pinpoint, but they feel and can see and know the difference. I've had dozens and dozens of spouses say this. And every now and then we'll get a spouse that's like resistant. But the difference about changing the definition of what's normal for you is you stop caring what other people think.
Right.
Because it's just normal. Like there's nothing special about it anymore. So when I started writing in my journal, like it was 967 days in a row.
Yeah.
And on the next day, I happened to not have my phone, which has a journal on it. And I was up in the mountains with Boy Scouts. I didn't have my journal with me or my phone with me. And I couldn't write in my journal. I didn't care. So based on hacking human nature, like that's a 3-year streak almost.
Yeah. And
I broke it. So I should be really upset and sad and depressed. Dude, it's like so normal at this point. It's almost as silly as a fish finally coming up to the surface of the ocean and it sees like, oh, what's that? And they jump out of the water and they're like, what is this place? And then they splash down into the water again and they go back to normal life. Like just because a fish jumps out of water, does that make him a bird? No, you go, right. you go back to what's normal. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, like you stop caring as much because there's no drama anymore. There's no, and that you don't have any reason to defend it. There's no reason to doubt, and you have all the evidence to prove that change has happened, and they can see it in you. And it's never been an issue, as weird as that sounds.
No, it doesn't sound weird at all. Your identity becomes internal, right? You become so much more aligned with who you are. So it just makes sense. I get
Yep.
it. Like
Yep.
I haven't been through your program, but I have been through the program. I've been through the program. I feel like because I understand exactly what you're talking about. I know I'm like, and I think that I talk about this with the people in my group, definitely not as succinct as this, or as clearly or as helpful, but this idea of figuring out who is it that you are. And because even in business, for me, a lot of people say, I want to make 7 figures. I want to do this. I want to do that. I said, no, you don't. You really don't. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Like, who are you? And start with that. And then you get to create these things, these structures around you, right? That help you experience that life that you want, that you truly desire. And it's hard for people because a lot of times what they actually really want is not a 7-figure law firm for a particular person. It might be making,
dude, it causes all kinds of giant problems to run.
That's right.
To run a law firm.
What really might most be important to them is being able to hang out with their kids all the time, or do whatever. But they're afraid to say that because it's not as cool. Sexy as 7 figures.
It's not cool.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's crazy.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's like, the other not sexy thing about it is like, it's all about feelings.
Right.
And we're like, we're dudes, like we're achievement driven, most of us. And so we talk about what you're getting done, like what you're creating, what you built, like your empire and this and that and this and that. And it's all about achievement stuff. But at the end of the day, like, especially during this COVID scenario, it really peels back to layers. Like, dude, why am I doing this? It gives you a chance to hit the reset button. Because like, I don't know somebody that works their face off, that slaves away to their business, that actually loves themselves. It doesn't happen. Like, you literally lose yourself in those terms, which is why entrepreneurs and lawyers burn the hell out, or they get bored out of their minds. One of those two things. And a business owner that's bored, bro, like that's dangerous, man. we burn stuff to the ground just because we're bored.
That's right. That's right.
It's crazy, but it happens all the time. And burnout, you burn out your business, you're also going to burn out your relationship. Like, what's the fastest way to go bankrupt? Divorce. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
So we deal with all these big things because we're scared to go at the feeling. It's unnatural for us. But what I like to do with my people is I don't necessarily go straight at the feeling. I go at a leverage point that's above that. That's not embarrassing at all. It just becomes a representation or a word that represents your identity.
So like, what's an example of that?
So an example for this, this is what I did with Taylor. Taylor Welch from Traveling Funnels, right?
Yep.
Super close friend of mine. And before he started TF, he was a client of mine. And now I've been a client of his, and I help out over at TF sometimes.
Yep.
Kind of gone full circle, which is super cool. But all I did for him before he even jumped headlong into entrepreneurship is he started to embody a word, and the word was unstoppable. So unstoppable isn't factual. It's not an achievement. It's never achieved. Like, how do you achieve unstoppable?
Right.
It's something that's always in play, but yet it's a feeling inside of yourself that like, bro, no matter what direction I go in, nothing's going to stop me. That's a feeling. But it's also a sexy feeling. Like, we want to be unstoppable.
Right. Yeah.
Like Tim Grover's book, Relentless.
Yep.
Freaking love that book because it feeds
all
of my male stuff. Like, I'm an athlete. I compete. I want to win. Like, all this stuff.
Yep.
But at the same time, it allows you to still feel that. So you can't run from the feelings, though, at the end of the day, because that's what you're left with. You're left with a feeling about yourself, not just your business, but about yourself. And that's everything. It forms your identity almost more than anything else. Like, so many people achieve success, but they don't feel successful. Weirdest thing. And so many people have on the outside, they have a brilliant relationship, but inside they feel chaotic. They're looking for a way out, or they're enticed by other options. And like, bro, we have to decide what's real for us and what we're truly committed to.
Right. When it comes to times like these, like, well, not times like these. This time has never happened before, really.
Yeah.
Do you find people slipping back into old identities, old habits? Like, do you find the stress can sort of push people in a different direction?
That's a great question. My clients, they're crushing it right now, every single one of them. So I haven't seen that personally or with my clients, but there is a traumatic transformational event happening to everyone right now. It's complete freaking chaos. And we might see, oh, well, that sucks. But like at the end of the day, do you actually want to go back to the way things were? Like there's aspects of the way things were that you don't want to go back to. And everyone feels this way. So like this chaos, yeah, it's chaotic. It's weird. It's painful. It's hurtful. There's trauma. But it's also creating this newness where you get to choose what that means for us.
Right.
The thing about these transformational events is because it causes chaos, your human nature is searching for what it wants to make normal. So things are malleable. They're variables right now that you can like, I want that, and I want that, and I want that. I want to totally forget about that because that sucked. But this was awesome. So that is normal for me now. You get to do that in chaos. You can't do that at any other time.
Yeah.
So the reason why science proves that traumatic events causes change is because it forces a reset in your human nature where your human nature wants to choose what the new normal is now. Because we're not going back to how things were. Like it's not a thing. Change has happened. You get to decide what that change means for you. And that's the beauty of human nature. So like I look at all this, I'm like, yeah, some people are sitting on the couch watching Netflix when they would be at the office billing time, right? I mean, the thing that sucks about lawyers is time, like billing hours.
Yep.
But now you're at home watching Netflix. Does that suck? Probably not. So there's some beauty in it.
Well, let me ask you this.
Maybe.
Yeah. Let me ask you this about the Netflix though. That's interesting because in some ways, aren't the people that are doing that, aren't they really still just avoiding themselves like in a new way in many ways? Like there may just be the person that really does just want to chill and be like bohemian or whatever, like really just like get in there. But for most people, aren't they just finding a new way to avoid what they really want to do or pursue or who they really are by finding some other distraction, right?
100%. And I agree with that. So to some large extent, it depends on what they actually want.
Right.
So
but some people don't want that either too, right? Some people are, really okay with just doing what they do,
I mean, nothing wrong with that. Like that's totally
there's
fine.
not. That's right. It's true.
And I can't, I'm wired so growth is normal for me. I will put up with any amount of hell to achieve growth.
Right.
My pain tolerance is giant because I've trained that. It doesn't mean it's fun all the time. Dude, it sucks. Like every other day sucks.
Right.
But the heights are so much higher. And the lows are also much lower because the higher you go, the longer you fall, right? I mean, that's human nature. There's always opposites. But I'd rather have the growth that I'm chasing. And it is a desire thing. And when people realize that your human nature is doing what it's doing to you without you really aware of it or allowing it or having permission, you're missing the opportunity. And the opportunity is in the event itself, which causes chaos. Then you get to redefine what normal is. Like it's literally wipe the slate clean.
Right.
And that's special. Like that's super unique. And so many people are like, they're pissed, they're scared, they're anxious, panicking. Like you're going to be fine. Like you're going to be okay.
Right.
Like I've been through hell myself. I've been divorced that I didn't want. I've been bankrupt because of that. Like super trauma for betrayal reasons and co-parenting and blending and second marriage and family. And like, I lost everything I cared about. And that's when this stuff really hit home for me several years ago. Is like, there's no amount of loss that I'm scared of anymore.
Right.
So coming out of a traumatic event, I didn't choose the divorce. It like happened to me. Of course I participated in it because I could have done better. But like I lost everything I cared about, all of it, gone. And that created a giant amount of chaos inside of myself mostly, and, externally. And I got to redefine what that meant for me. So instead of, boy, this sucks, blaming her, whatever, I chose to make it the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
And we all have that same opportunity right now. So I'm not scared of this chaos. Like I thrive on this stuff because it's a reset button. And I get to turn this into the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's a blessing.
For sure.
I don't care. I don't care who you are. That's a blessing. You might not feel it today, but you will.
Right.
As long as your focus is on the growth aspect of it.
Yeah. And often, your worst case scenario, what your mind is telling you is going to happen, often is not as bad as
nowhere
reality
near as bad
is.
Yeah. Like the thing that human nature does the most is it makes a big deal out of everything. It literally magnifies the stupidest little things. Like, to give an example, I had a dude whose marriage was on the rocks because he couldn't get himself to do the dishes. Like, I kid you not. And I can see this happening in real life because this is real stuff. Like when there's years of baggage about one simple little thing, and his wife wanted it, he knew it, and he'd known it for years, and he'd always been resisting. So, and he's prideful and arrogant and all this stuff and whatever. It creates this giant relationship problem, right?
Yep.
But it's something so stupid and simple. Like, bro, do the dishes. Like, what's the problem? He couldn't. Like, he was literally incapacitated. So, like, there's no intimacy in their marriage. They have no respect for each other. The kids are having a hard time because they're seeing mom and dad fighting, and they don't understand. And they think it's their fault, and it creates this huge problem, all centered around this simple issue. So, like, human nature is going to make a big deal out of everything. It's also going to anticipate worst case scenarios,
right,
or best case scenarios. All of those, again, remember, the master motive is to keep things normal. So the reason why it makes a big deal out of stuff is because you're less likely to do it. So what was normal for that family? Fighting,
right,
conflict. That was what's normal. Because remember, your human nature, it don't care what you want. It doesn't care at all. It just wants more of the same. Yep. So no wonder why he couldn't get himself to do the dishes, because if he did, guess what happens? Things change.
Things calm down, right?
And that's different. And that's new. And that's not same. It's different. So it doesn't matter if it's a better, different or not. Human nature don't care. It wants more same.
Yeah.
So we ran him through the thing where he had a traumatic, transformational, positive event, right? Now he's washing dishes like a champ. Doesn't even have to be asked. But guess what happened to the marriage? Saved. They're more intimate, more strong, more connected than ever. Spending more family time. Like, it literally changed everything. Dishes, man. Freaking dishes. So, like, dude, this happens everywhere. We do it to ourselves. It's like, this is why we procrastinate. Ta-da. You procrastinate because your human nature is making a big deal out of something that's really stupid, simple. And so we avoid it naturally. The freeze, flight, and fight mechanism is about getting stuff done every day, every single day. In our mind, we make a big deal. Oh, it's a really big deal that I make that Facebook post today. It's a really big deal that I reach out to that person, or I write that thing, or I do that, this and that, or whatever. So we avoid it. That's human nature, man. We make it. It's literally a drama queen.
Is the antidote to that, in your eyes, just doing the thing?
It's reminding yourself of who you are is the antidote. So if you remind yourself of who you are and you are bigger than that thing, then dude, it's game over. Like, if, for example, if the dude who can't get himself to do the dishes reminds himself of who and what he's committed to, there's no more drama anymore. Because your human nature is like, oh yeah, that's who we are. And then all of a sudden, you're just doing the dishes because that's normal. It's what you do. So this again, this is so shockingly simple that people don't believe it's this simple. But once you go through that traumatic event and change is created, and you've partnered with your human nature, where the higher self becomes partners with the lower self, all you need to do is remind yourself of who you are. Remind yourself of what is normal.
Right. Yeah.
That, dude,
Awesome.
That's it. Anyway, I can go on for a long time about this stuff, but those are the basics.
Yeah. I love it.
The fun thing is you're not going to hear this anywhere else. So like,
no,
this is pretty, I love this stuff. It's so simple. It's elegant.
Right.
It makes sense to everyone because we deal with this on a humanity level.
Right.
Like we all deal with this. I deal with this every day. And when you start to become aware of these things that are at play, the game gets really fun.
Right.
It gets really simple.
Yeah. And it goes back to the whole concept at the beginning of like, look, you know, I'm much like you. Like my goal in life is to become the best person that I can be. Mm-hmm. You know, like, because everything I think else that you could describe will flow from that. Right.
Everything you want comes from that.
Right. Right. And but it's so simple, but it's so hard all at the same time. You know? Yep. So cool. Well, hey, we're at an hour, man. So I know you're busy.
I don't know what you're going to do with a podcast this long, dude.
I'm going to just drop it, man. This is, you're the first of my conversations that I'm doing.
Style. That's awesome.
But I just like to talk, man. And this stuff, the thing is, you know, everyone's talking about like Facebook ads or like how SEO, like whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're not right in this aspect, like a lot of that stuff either is not, you're not going to do it right. Like you're not going to approach it from the right direction. You're not going to follow through. Like there's all these other problems that you got to get this stuff right first. So I love talking about this stuff, but I'm just going to drop it. Breakthroughchallenge.com, right?
Breakthroughchallenge.com.
If they want to learn more about that.
Yep. We just pushed out the version 3.0, which is better than ever. So it's a 21-day thing. Here's how it works. This is how I do business, by the way. Like it's a $95 refundable deposit, which means I want to make this free for you. Yep. So when you get done with the challenge at 21 days, it's like going to a life-changing theme park, buying a ticket, and then getting all your money back after you've had all the fun. Like that's literally what it is. Yeah. So when you finish it, I give your money back because I want this experience for you. It opens up an entirely new door of possibility. And that's how we do it. All you need to do is open an email for 21 days and you're good.
Cool.
I mean, it creates that experience for you. And if for whatever reason you flunk out, and we do kick people out, but we're at about a 96% completion rate, which in terms of the internet world, those are near impossible numbers. It goes to show you like what we're doing is awesome. It changes things. Yeah. For the people who don't finish, we just donate your deposit to charity. So I don't get that. I'm not incentivized to flunk you out and steal your money.
Right.
If you don't make it through, we donate to Operation Underground Railroad for human trafficking. So
nice.
Anyway, if you want the traumatic transformational event done for you and you just follow along, there you go, breakthroughchallenge.com. The copy on there is not updated for COVID type thing. So you have to see through that, but would love to have anyone in there, especially if they're in law, because I can't think of something else that would just put things back into place for you.
Yeah.
And allow you to function on a higher and better level.
Definitely. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and being flexible. Nobody knows this, but I canceled on you last week. And so I appreciate you being here.
Life happens no matter what. It still happens. There's rapids and there's stuff around the river bend and there's waterfalls and there's all sorts of stuff that happens in life that makes things beautiful.
No doubt. Well, thank you, man. Seth Ellsworth, it was a pleasure. Have a good day, man. Thank you so much.
Yep. Talk to you.
All right. See you.
Bye.